That Carl's logo out the camera.
They
don't need any extra.
They didn't pay me.
They don't need any extra promotion.
Thank you all for joining us for another episode of ChicanXperience. I'm here with the man, the myth, legend, Gabe Roth, who is the overseer of both Penrose and Daptone Records, a legend in the game, a legend within the city of Riverside, my home. And just welcome to the show, man. Appreciate you, and thank you for the hospitality, man.
Yeah, man, thanks for having me, and great introduction. It's all true. No.
That's right.
That's much, but thank you.
Yeah, man, thank you. And like I said, man, thank you for your hospitality. We're here in one of the Penrose studios, and at least for myself, I just can't believe I get to be in a space where so much magic has been made, so much music has been made, so much music that I respect and just feel is a great example of quality music. You know what I mean?
Thank you for saying so.
Yeah. So to get started, man, I kind of want you to see if we, if we can go back to that night in October with the Penrose Showcase, right here in the city of Riverside, not too far from here. It was 2 nights. You guys sold out for 2 nights.
Mm-hmm.
Could you describe what that moment meant for you and the label?
Oh man, that was huge. That was kind of the culmination of a lot of work. It meant a lot to me on a lot of levels, but a big part of it was because it was in Riverside. It's my hometown, the Municipal Auditorium. A building a block from my studio, right in the center of town. And it was a chance for Riverside and the Inland Empire to represent. I think a lot of people from the outside were kind of like, well, why are you doing it in LA, and who's going to drive all the way out there? It's like, man, no, we got to drive here. We're already here.
Yeah.
And man, it sold out so quick. It was like, I don't know how many tickets, 3,500 tickets or something over the couple nights, which was pretty amazing, man. But it was also the culmination of kind of a vision we had from the beginning with Penrose, because the Penrose concept, like a lot of things, started right before the pandemic and kind of got the rug pulled out from under it. We had
that's right.
Yeah, we dropped the first 545s. It was the Sinceres, the Altons, Jason Joshua, Los Yesterdays. Vicky Tafoya was the other one. So who am I skipping? I'm skipping somebody in there.
It was 5
that's the Sacred Souls. I didn't say Sacred Souls, yeah. And Vicky Tafoya became the 6th. But initially we had booked this tour, and we were gonna do this whole West Coast tour with all the bands. We booked it, we started promoting it, we're selling a lot of tickets, and we're excited about going out there kind of as this family of musicians and going out as this whole Penrose Review, launching the label, launching the records and stuff. And actually, one of the first shows was supposed to be in this building right here in Riverside. So we were excited about that in this building in a big room downstairs, in a big hall that's downstairs. Right. And we'd kind of booked that tour also, like where it was like, hey, let's not play San Francisco. Let's go play Oakland. Let's play Santa Ana. Let's play Riverside. Like, let's not hit West Hollywood. Let's hit these off markets where it's like people are really showing love and like kind of stay a little bit. Kind of respect the kind of the underground vibe of the whole. And just kind of the way that this kind of Soldi's Renaissance is going off right now. Like really kind of like stay in touch with the people that are supporting that. And so it was a big deal, and then of course got canceled with COVID, the pandemic and stuff. It was supposed to be, I believe, it was like March of 2020.
Oh shit!
I mean, it was like down to the final weeks when we had to pull the plug like everybody else. At the time we were like, oh, we'll reschedule for next month. And it kind of went on, and eventually we were able to do some reviews and stuff, but. This one we did the Municipal Auditorium was the first time we were able to get everybody there and really do it the way we wanted to do it, and have everybody on stage and do encores together, and have our merch game tight so people could buy stuff and take pictures, and it was really a celebration. It was kind of a really culmination of something big, And it's cool for me too, because I think Penrose to me is very different from Daptone. Like Daptone really came out of me and my homies making our own records and like, man, fuck a record label, we'll do it ourselves. It came out of that mentality of we're just gonna put our own stuff out. It started out real scrappy, and eventually we were able to build it into a legitimate business and a kind of a little empire, and have a still underground but still kind of have a global reputation and have the resources to really get behind artists, and with Sharon Jones and Charles Bradley and stuff, do some bigger things. But with Penrose it's very different, because to me Penrose was, initially it was kind of a small idea. I was kind of telling the folks at Daptone, like, there's this little scene going off out here, and there's a couple little bands that are sounding pretty good, and like I don't really know whether they're ready to, sign some big record contract with Daptone to do this whole other thing, but locally I'd like to support them and figure out a way to help some of these guys record and put records out. I got a recording studio we have distribution, we have promotion, like we have the infrastructure at Daptone, the tools.
Yeah.
And if I was, I was in the position some of these bands were in, 25 years ago, and I didn't really have somebody to provide that. So I had to beg, borrow, and steal to try to scrap it up. And I was like, man, I'm in this position now where it's like, I put my records out, I've kind of done my thing, but this is an opportunity for me to kind of give forward and give back and kind of help out these bands.
Yeah.
And it's very different for me because I feel like the Penrose thing is, even though I have, not that I don't have some kind of vision with it, some direction, and I steer the helm in a certain way, but really the music is not my music, it's their music, it's these artists' music, it comes from the Sacred Souls and the Altons and Los Yesterdays and Vicky DeFoy and all these groups and Joey Quinones and the Sinceres, everybody, and now the Escapers. There's more groups coming into the fold, but there's a scene that was already here. You know what I mean? So I'm just trying to build off that, trying to amplify that, give them what they, help them with whatever they need. If they need help in the studio, if they need help with, some arranging thing, or how do I get strings on my record, or recording, giving them the resources to record, pressing records, trying to plug in things for them, and I mean, it's not like I don't want to pretend it's like a non-profit, like Daptone's still running the thing. It's a record business, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
but just like with Daptone, we try to be fair and transparent with the artists and try to support them as best we can. And it's cool for me because I feel like Penrose is really kind of blown up and blossomed, and all these acts are contributing to it, and I think they're all enjoying the camaraderie of it, and kind of, so it is there. Cool. Yeah, and so that night to me was like a real culmination of that whole idea. It was their music, but it was all brought together and amplified to a level where they were able to sell that many tickets and really blow it out, and it was in Riverside, so it was cool, man.
That's tight, man.
And we did a show with Sharon Jones at the Municipal Auditorium.
Really?
I don't know what year it was, maybe 2014 maybe. And we put together
2014, man, okay.
Something like that.
Yeah.
It was a while back, but we put together a workshop for kids where we brought in kids from all the schools in Riverside, like elementary school, going through high school, and we did stuff on the radio and reached out to the schools. And we brought in, I can't remember what it was, 400 or 500 kids or something in there, into the Municipal Auditorium in the afternoon. And the band did a workshop with them where we did rhythms and we did music and they asked questions and they came on stage and we did all these music games and stuff and everybody, I told Sharon, I was like, you don't have to do it rest for the show, but she wanted to do it. Everybody wanted to do it. So the whole band, we came down here to the studio and huddled up and made a plan, went down there and did this whole workshop for like all these Riverside students and stuff. So it was, I already had this really cool positive connection to that room, to the Municipal Auditorium, and I just love it. It's perfect for something like that. It's old school. It's got a big wooden open dance floor, but it also has seats and balconies for people who want to enjoy the show that way.
That's right. And you had some folks who were like like OGs, some old timers and stuff like that. They want to sit down,
we do. Yeah, we did, man. Yeah. Definitely.
That was a great great show. I went to the Sunday night show, man. I loved it, bro. And that's when we met. So you know what I mean. It was great. It was great for me as a kid seeing that, and obviously coming from the city, man. Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. And it is still okay, good. And you kind of answered one of my questions, which is kind of the difference between like that Brooklyn perspective of Daptones and then the West Coast perspective of here at Penrose.
Yeah. I mean, I'd say there's definitely like musical, aesthetic, stylistic differences. Obviously, you know what I mean. Yeah. Like Penrose is coming from this kind of sweet soul tradition and the oldies tradition, and kind of like a certain relevance to the way soul music's experienced out here. You know what I mean. And Daptone, coming out of Desco in the late '90s and stuff, like originated out of this kind of raw funk, like almost like on some breakdancer stuff. Like kind of came out of that and embraced Afro funk and Afro beat and gospel music, and a lot of like real raw, the more raw side of soul. You know what I mean? And we had a lot of older singers, like we're dealing with Sharon Jones and Charles Bradley and but also Naomi Shelton and Sonna Starr and Lee Fields and people that were locked into the old school kind of gospel roots, raw side of soul music. Man, that was kind of the meat and potatoes, or has been the meat and potatoes of Daptone, even though we branched out into rocksteady and with the Frighteners and different things, and over the years, that was kind of the meat and potatoes of Daptone has always been, soul music. And to us, it's never been about like kind of the genres of it. It's always about the intention behind it, because you know I always felt like the philosophy of Daptone has always been very punk rock. Like the music is not stylistically punk rock. We're not doing hardcore music, but the philosophy is it's like we're 100% independent. We're not going through major labels, major distribution. We're doing it ourselves. We're doing it our own way. We're not chasing some kind of weird radio market pop thing. It's like we're doing what we do, and people respect us because we stay true to ourselves, and we respect them, and we don't pander. We try to make the music right, and be good to people, and just be good people. And doing that first, I think, has always been, very strong at the center of our business, in the studio, in the office, all the way top to bottom. So I think Penrose shares that and comes out of that DNA and is part of that same company and family and infrastructure. And that's the thing that goes top to bottom, is like the music has to be honest. The marketing, everything has to be honest and true. You know what I mean? So I think that they have in common, but stylistically Penrose is very different because it's this younger generation. It's these young kids. Like when I first started making records, a lot of these kids weren't even born. You know what I mean? Like I started making records like '96.
That's right.
So it's a whole new generation. So it's interesting. There's connections there, but it's definitely different. The aesthetic is different. It's also different for me having these real independent artists where they're all these bands would be if they never met me, they would be bands. They would be making records. They'd be touring. Whereas Daptone was a lot of stuff that we kind of created together. What I mean? Like my partner Neil had the Sugarman 3. I had the Soul Providers and the Dap Kings, and it was all kind of our own family making records. And then you would split off to the side. And it's like, oh, Tommy's gonna do the Manhattan Street Band, or the Budos Band, or Antibalas. But it was all coming out of the same family of guys just trying to like make cool music together, and and put it out. And then later we started to embrace, James Hunter and other artists that we were really signing. But it initiated just us, Penrose is totally artists coming in, bringing artists in, so
you kind of meet them where they're at.
Meeting with that, and then we try to find what we have in common musically, like, they may love all this, and I may love all this, but there's this part here that we both love, and that's what we try to focus on. And that's been interesting for me too, because I think some of the artists, it's more obvious. Like to me, like the Sacred Souls are kind of like right in the middle of stuff that what they're going for is something that like the Daptone crew has always kind of loved that sound a bit. We're a bunch of record collectors. Everybody's been into that kind of deep soul sound. But then you have somebody like Vicky Tafoya. It's coming from a lot of places. I mean, she's into all this Ronette stuff and girl group stuff and rockabilly kind of stuff, and she had the Vengeance, and they're into doo-wop stuff and early 50s stuff and all this kind of stuff. But there's this kind of crossover where she's also into like Little Willie John, and there's certain records that like kind of are my favorite records and her favorite records, and we kind of we're like, it's really fun with them, like kind of musically going through stuff and kind of find that spot in the middle, or the Altons also have like, they kind of have this whole other side to them that's kind of like this almost alternative rock, more bluesy rock kind of side, which is not really, it's not really where I'm coming from, but it's cool. It's part of who they are, you know what I mean? But they also have this other side doing these kind of sweet soul duets and these really beautiful songs that they're writing that to me is, when I started hearing them do that, I was like, yo, that's a whole nother level. Like if you want to get into that, like I'll back that, you know what I mean? So we're kind of finding where we meet in the middle. And hopefully making records that we're all proud of,
That's cool, man. When you were talking about like Daptones and like the raw side of soul, that's something that I don't think I was understanding until until your label kind of put it all together, man. When I was watching the show, it's crazy because you're like in the back, you're like in a lot of the sets. You were like in most of the sets of the Municipal Auditorium.
I mean, I might sneak in and shake a drunken tambourine, but
but it's like what I kind of got from it is that like you kind of have like a fatherly role when it comes to these artists, especially now that they're younger. Do you feel like that, or how do you feel like you approach them, like seeing them?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't go as far as fatherly, maybe uncle kind of vibe, but I mean, I definitely feel like I'm not going to pretend that I know their experiences, and I've done it before, but I've done something similar before, you know what I mean? Like I was in a scrappy band that worked my way up, and I've been trying to make soul records for, 25 years, so I think like, I do feel like I try to look out for those guys and help out wherever I can, and and supportive, you know what I mean? So
Right.
I think fatherly would probably be going too far, you know.
Right,
I don't
right.
get Oedipal
I'm not
with it,
trying
you
to-
know.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like
No,
I,
it's
you
just
know,
like-
I'm probably and I'm also it's weird too because you know coming up I was always the young blood, you know what I mean?
Right.
I was working with
Yeah.
dudes like Cliff Driver and you know even Sharon was you know most of the artists I was working with
Yeah.
were much older than me. I was always the young dude in the world, like this. What's his kid know? What's his kid know? You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
And now it's like I blink my eyes, and all of a sudden, like these kids
Crazy.
coming in here, and I, you know, they're not as old as my socks. You know what I mean? They're young. They're young to me. You know what I mean?
Right.
And
Yeah.
and they have a whole different world. You know, and there's a lot. The other thing that's real different too is like social media and all
Yeah.
that. They have a whole different way of relating and communicating with their fans
Mhm.
and their audience, you know what I mean,
Right.
that I'm kind of out of touch with. Like I never got on social media. I was just like, man, I just don't have the bandwidth for it, you know what I mean? I got the phone number of anybody I want to talk to, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I'm cool, you know? So it's you know, there's a lot of that stuff I just have to kind of defer to them, you know what I mean? And yeah, we
Yeah.
have people at Daptone that are hip to that stuff and marketing and stuff, but you know, there's parts of that stuff that I don't understand. I don't try to understand. And that way I am kind of like the old, almost a grandfather, kind of just like, all right, if you say so. But where we, I think where we get along real good is just mutual respect and this kind of idea that like, yo, we're going to make a great record. We're not going to make a lot of records.
Mhm.
We're not going to make good records. We're just going to make great records. And if we make a record that's not great, we're going to put it on the shelf, you know what I
Right.
mean? And we're just going to keep working on it and we're going to do it over and over until it's right, you know?
Right.
And I think that though that can be frustrating, I think, for artists because it takes a long time to get a record out. It's hard to get a record out, you know.
Mhm.
But when you finally do, I think everybody enjoys that. You know, they're proud
Yeah.
of it. You know.
Yeah, well, you guys are putting out so much good stuff, and a lot of stuff's coming out right now too, man. And we'll
Yeah.
get to that. We'll get to that right now. I want to say, like, what is your? Do you think you have like a leadership style when it comes to this? Like, what is your leadership style when it comes to band dynamics? And you're dealing with all these personalities.
Yeah.
Now I know you're not managing them necessarily, but
Yeah,
how
but
do you get that all together?
I would say, I mean, from doing this for a lot of years, I mean, it's kind of like one of the things I learned the most, like as a producer and somebody that's in charge of trying to get different personalities to kind of get the best out of them and get them to feel good and go the right direction and stuff. A lot of it is not what you do, it's what you don't do. You know what I mean?
Oh, okay.
Like a lot of it to me is like getting out of the way and you have to know, you know, you have to listen to people and kind of pay attention to them and feel their dynamic. And there's some people that need encouragement. Some people straight up like being yelled at, not yelled at, but you know,
Yeah.
some people want to be told like that was flat, do it again. Like they don't want to mess around with like mind games. They just want to know
Right, yeah.
what they need to do to get their thing done, and they can take it. They got thick skin. Other
Uh-huh.
people, a lot of, especially young musicians and young
Right.
singers, like they don't necessarily have that confidence.
Uh-huh.
So they're always kind of fighting themselves a little bit and playing these games in their own mind about, am I good, am I not good, do I sound good, does it not sound good, you know, like
Right.
they're in that, and you kind of have to respect that. Sometimes you got to give that space, you know what I mean, and you have to know, like, a lot of times, like I said, just getting out of people's way, or telling somebody something in the right way, or like, sometimes I find like somebody's kind of going the wrong direction,
Yeah.
but if you just let them go for a minute, they'll find their way back.
Right. Right.
And
Wow,
if
wow.
they find their way back themselves, then it's something that they come out of it feeling like they have rightfully control of the situation. They're the
Right.
ones that are steering where they're going, you know what I mean? And they figured it out themselves and they got there.
Yeah.
So a lot of times somebody goes like this, and the intention, I'm sitting here a lot of times in the control room, somebody's doing something
Yeah.
that ain't cool.
Right.
And everybody in here's like, well, tell them it's, you know, they're singing flat, or it's too fast, or, you know, that change is corny, or whatever it is. And they're all yelling. I'm just like, just chill, you know? And they say, how's that sound? I say, it sounds great, you want to listen to it, you know? And they'll come back in, and they'll sit here, and they'll listen to it, and they'll be like, man, I think I was singing flat, or that change is corny.
Right.
And they'll come to it themselves, right? And we got to the same place, and maybe it took an extra couple minutes,
Right.
but their mind is in a different place, you know what I mean? They're in
Wow.
a situation of control of their music and of their art, and they're finding it. And a lot of times I'm wrong, too. Like, a lot of times they're going left, and I'm like, these dumb motherfuckers, they need to be going right.
Right.
You know what I
Right.
mean? But I'll keep my mouth shut and let them take that journey. And sometimes I'm like, you know what, they're right. That's way better.
Uh-huh.
Like I thought it needed to go here, but they went there, and that's way better than what I had in my mind. You know what I mean?
Same thing.
So it's like I think like when I was younger, I was a little bit more. I'd be more outspoken, in some ways more controlling, and more quick to be like, no, we're all going this way. You need to play this. You need to play that. This is what we're trying to do. No,
Yeah.
that ain't right. That's corny. Don't do that. Let's go. You know what I mean? And I wasn't. You know, I always try to make people feel good, but I don't. I
Right.
think. And part of it, like I said, is also different because Penrose, I feel like I take more of a role of like, hey, let me help you do your thing, as opposed to this is my thing. Like with the Dap Kings, you know, it was everybody's band, but I was the band leader. You know what I mean? It was my job to be like, make shit happen. So it was like, I think I took a stronger role musically in that band as far as like, yo, like things are going on, like let me make a call, you know, make things happen.
Right.
So now I feel like depending on the artist, I think I take more time, and I think I listen more.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest thing to your point is that I don't come into it with any idea of I know how to do this. I'm gonna tell you how to do this, because everybody's different. Every artist is different. Every group dynamic is different.
Yeah.
You know, every song is different. You know what I mean? So I think a lot of it is like listening and not trying to get hung up on some idea that I know what I'm doing. You know, like, oh well, I know how to get a drum sound, or I know how to, you know, arrange this or something. It's like I learned a lot of stuff from making a lot of records, and I try to bring that and offer things up. But man, I learn stuff every day in here, man. And these artists bring stuff that I never would have thought of. You know, so I think
cool,
a lot of it is just kind of like, you know, like everything, man, just like listening. And sometimes somebody told me, my friend Jordan McLean told me years ago, like, don't let what you're expecting to happen get in the way of what's already happening.
Yeah.
And it's
That's
something
cool,
it's something
really
I think
cool.
about a lot, because a lot of
That's
times
deep.
like we'll go into session and I'll have an idea in my head about how things are going to come together and how it's going to sound and who needs to play what, and somebody takes it another way. And I got to make sure I don't step on something could be going to some really cool that I didn't think about. And I got to make sure I don't step on that because I'm so hung up on it has to go this other way, you know. So.
That's cool, man. That's
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, what do you call it? I guess that takes a lot of growth or whatever over time, right? It's not like something you knew out the gate, right?
Yeah. It took me a long time to figure that out. I mean, it's not that complicated. I mean, it's like a lot of things in life, man. Like if you just shut up and listen, a lot of times you actually can accomplish more than,
Right.
you know what I mean, if you're trying to like drive stuff all the time, you know.
Right.